spoilers for episode 5. I've done reviews of the other 4, and they're all down in the description in a playlist link below. But now, episode 5. Whoa, if you wanted an episode that took all of the bad things from episodes 1, 3, and 4 and combined them, and then just turned all of their dials up to 11, this is the episode for you. This show has it all, to the point where now I think I actually deserve a gender studies degree just for watching it all. Twice. The amount of BS in this is actually astronomical. Just not from that perspective, but it's clearly written by talentless hacks that don't understand the source material and think it's full of problems that need to be fixed. And that involves all the things of actually taking every male character and completely making them into just cowardly little girls. And then you take every woman and make them masculine men. Gone are the days where being a strong woman meant you're actually a strong woman. You know, you could still be feminine and you'd just be great at being a woman. No, now, if you've got to be a strong woman, you've got to be great at being a man. I don't really understand it myself, but I think out of the 2 points of view, if you're the one that thinks women need to become men to actually be equals of men, then you're probably the one with the issue about women, not me. And you see that everywhere in this show. Lan just completely acts out of himself. The writers of the show have no idea how men behave. They have no idea why men behave how they do or the importance of it. All they think is, oh my god, men are evil, and so we've just got to solve it by having them get in touch with their feelings. And I've seen this scene before, but I just couldn't work out where it was from. I couldn't remember what it reminded me of, and then it hit me, and everything began to fall into place.
We introduce for the first time ever anywhere the...
I am so sorry to my world. This is not what we want.
So you've got men being crybabies, you've got Random Matt doing nothing for the entire show, even though Moiraine is supposed to drag them into the plot. She doesn't, and it makes her look stupid. But the reason why they had to make her look stupid is because if you pulled them into the plot, they would just take over and start doing everything, like the main characters they are. But we can't have that, and we can't have men saving a woman. I haven't thought of one single time when a man has saved a woman throughout this entire show, except for Lan, and Lan is definitely an exception, because he's completely subservient. He's already surrendered himself and submitted to Moiraine, heart, body, and soul. So he is the exception. He can still be a man, because he's allowed to keep his testicles. They're just in Moiraine's purse. Which is why you end up in weird, nonsensical situations where the woman still ends up saving the man even when it makes literally zero sense. And they actually had to destroy Perrin's entire story arc by giving him a wife just for this very particular moment, just so they could remove any sense of dignity from him while they did it. And so, while episode 4 may have completely and utterly destroyed the magic system, this episode destroyed everything else. Let's get stuck in. We started with this. This scene is where they're essentially carrying on from the end of the last episode. There's just been a big fight against Logain and his army, and so they're now burying their dead. Not burying them very well, though, are they? I mean, if you actually look at the depth of the soil, if someone buried me in a grave 2 inches deep, I would be incredibly offended, because it's a sign of disrespect. You can't even be bothered to dig my grave, and these are people surrounded by Aes Sedai, people who can dig a grave like this instantly just using the power, and they can't even be bothered. And the warders, who are meant to be longer, fitter, stronger, they could dig holes for hours and not get tired. They can't be bothered to dig the holes either. And in fact, you can actually see at this angle, his chest even sticks up above the ground. The grave isn't even deep enough to be above him at all. Not even a centimeter. That's how lazy these people are. And look, I know you did it for this shot. I don't know why it's suddenly snowy, but you thought this was a sign of respect. Oh, doesn't it look cool how we've just got all white cloths over them all? Except this will not look cool in 12 hours when all the foxes have got to them and there's just literally lots of intestines scattered all over the floor. Now, there is one storyline I liked here, and that is of this guy, the warder that lost his Aes Sedai. And it does explain to the audience very early on what happens, to give Lan a bit of a, you know what will happen if Moiraine dies. And because you like Lan, it gives a larger sense of consequence. The issue is his story drags on too long. This guy, the warder, is essentially swallowed her death, as they call it, which is the same thing as they call it in the books. And essentially, that guy will die trying to get revenge and avenge the death of his Aes Sedai, which is why he attacked Logain. He intended to be killed in that attack, but preferably take Logain with him as well. But now Logain's been gentled and he's just given up. Now, they've tried to get around it in this by going, oh, well, he wants to take her ring back to the White Tower, which it's not a thing. But a ring doesn't replace that, because the ring is just a piece of jewelry. It had sentimental value to the Aes Sedai because they earned it, because they put so much work into it. But it's not special, it's not magical, it's just a ring. And they could argue, oh, well, we gave them this mission to try and get them back so they make them survive. And it makes this guy's plot drag on for the entire episode, when really, it should have just ended here. And then we get this scene 1 month later. Now, it's good that they've shown some kind of passage in time, because the world is massive. It would take a lot longer than a month to travel the distances they're talking about, so it's not long enough. But because the writers can't write very well, this is already makes you incredulous and doesn't make any sense. Because the way the writers write this is that although all the characters have moved in both space and time since the last time you saw them, nothing's happened. Literally nothing. The plot hasn't changed, the characters haven't changed, they haven't had any discussions, they haven't been chased by anything, and you should bear in mind that the last time we saw Rand and Mat, they were being chased by a Fade, and that Fade did nothing. Now, we know why that Fade found them, we know how that Fade tracked them, and so this Fade can still track them for a month, and nothing. And I'd like to point out, you don't just get tracked by a Fade. He had a Fade, he had Trollocs, he had some of the most powerful channelers in the world, and no, nothing. Nothing happened for the last month. Nothing happened to Rand and Mat at all. You've also got Perrin that stayed with the Tinkers for a month, even though right when he met the Tinkers, he said we should leave, and Egwene went, yes, we should leave, and then they followed them anyway and stayed with them for a month for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And then we get this very weird conversation where Moiraine says to Lan, do you still think of this as home? And Lan goes, don't you? As if, yes, he does. Lan didn't spend basically any time in the tower, and he doesn't think very highly of it at all. Like, literally, there's even a point at the start where he goes, I won't trust anybody until we reach the White Tower, and then I'll only trust half of them. Lan knew that place was a snake pit. He had absolutely no love for that place at all. His home will always be Shinar and the Blight. But Moiraine doesn't think of it as home, and nor should she, because she's never spent much time there at all. It didn't mean much to her, because she had a mission, she had something important to do. She had to go and find 3 boys so they could save the world. And then she lost them and didn't give a crap. And so that's why last month she's not given a crap. For the last month she's just followed this parade to Tar Valon, even though nobody else is there. And she doesn't know if they're going to be survived. And they're hunted by the Dark One, but she's completely ignoring it. And that makes total sense. Spent 20 years of her life looking for these 3 boys. And when she finds them, she no longer gives a crap. Because if I've always finally achieved my life's goals, I'll immediately give up. I'm pretty sure the writers are trying to make Moiraine a main character, and they just keep making her look like a bigger moron every single episode, which is weird, because she never did in the books. She always seemed very in control, very intelligent, and in this, she just comes across as thick constantly. But one of the issues with writing is you can only write people of your intelligence or lower. Then we jump to Rand and Mat. Again, not been attacked by the Dark One. No, none of a Shadowspawn Fade, nothing else. None of that's a problem. And at this point, Mat has been getting ever more sick. In the last episode, we literally saw him vomiting evil onto the floor and getting taken over by the dagger. And, yeah, in the last month, nothing. No, nothing. Rand's put up with him this long for a month, but he's not even considering there might be something wrong. No, Rand still thinks that it's all to do with channeling. Mat doesn't. Mat doesn't seem to. Mat should know, considering Mat has literally been vomiting up. So we had episode 2, 3, and 4 in very quick succession, where he both went into Shagar Logoth and then very drastically got worse to the point where he's literally vomiting up evil. And, yeah, when a month passes, doesn't get any worse. Doesn't get any worse at all. In fact, he seems a lot better. He seems better now than he was a month ago. And then we get Tar Valon, and, okay, it looks decent, but it doesn't look anything like it should. I do like Dragonmount in the background. Obviously, can you really go that wrong with a mountain? I don't like the White Tower at all. This is literally meant to be something that you think no human hands could possibly have built. It's meant to be that impressive, and it's not. It's not even really that tall, is it? Let's be honest. I'm also not too sure you actually can work out that this is an island. It doesn't really show that too much. It's one of the most defensible places on Earth. And it actually split off from the island around Dragonmount when Dragonmount was first created. Like, it looks okay and it looks decent if you don't know what it's supposed to look like, but if you do, it's quite disappointing. Now, Ren and Matt go in and he says, oh, Tom told us about this innkeeper. Now, you don't see the innkeeper, but that innkeeper isn't supposed to be in Tar Valon. He's supposed to be in Caemlyn, which is where they went to meet up with Moiraine. Obviously, none of that's happening. So now they've completely moved a guy, but then you don't see him, so I don't know why they wrote it into the plot to begin with. I'm beginning to wonder if they're actually just going to replace all of the Caemlyn scenes and just put them in Tar Valon, which again won't make sense, but I guess they could technically, because it could kind of make sense and they could make it do, but it wouldn't really fit with the books, but they don't care about that. So Rand and Matt go to an inn and lie down and they start talking, and Matt's like, oh my god, do you remember that time when we were attacked by the Fade? A month ago! And I'm like, I was wondering what happened, and I wondered if it was me. And Rand's like, no, it can't be you. We know it can't be you. You didn't kill that little girl. I know you keep thinking of her, but you didn't kill the little girl. The Fade killed the little girl. And it is trying to make out that Matt did it. And he's thinking that he did. And I really hope it didn't, because it would completely destroy his character. But that is the way the story's kind of going at the moment. Oh, did he, didn't he? The issue with this is, it's been a month and they've not talked about it. What's going on? How come Matt isn't over this by now? Like, literally, it was a month ago. Either you would have already gone through this discussion, or you would have had it so many times by now that Rand would be bored to tears, and I was bored to tears just having it once. And they start talking about, oh, we should go to the tower. Yeah, we need to go and talk to the Aes Sedai. And it's like, do you remember what you were told the last time you knew one of them? Yeah, she told you you were the dragon. And you know what happens to a man that can... and the dragon can channel. And you know what happens to a man that can channel with the Aes Sedai? They gentle him and then he dies. And they don't seem to care about that at all. They'll say, oh, yeah, let's go off to the White Tower. This will be fun. Oh, let's go and have a wash first, because we can't go and get murdered by the Aes Sedai if we're dirty. I mean, it's completely bewildering with all of their entire ideas about what they should do back to front. But this is what we get for basically the entire episode. So instead, we just get the discussion of, yeah, let's go to the White Tower and get gentled, Matt. Yeah, let's go over there, Ant. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I have no idea, but I would not be surprised if they made Matt kill that little girl, just so they could drag Matt down. They'd be like, oh my god, but we need to make it emotional about something. And it's like, no, these men were heroes. These men were the main characters. These were the people that mattered. And you are just determined to drag them down. And you never see any of that with the women. We didn't see Nynaeve set 30 Aes Sedai accidentally on fire when she's trying to heal Lan. Oh no, she just did everything perfect first time. So far, these writers have rewritten every single thing in the books that was a woman's fault and turned it into a man's fault. And then they've also added in a load of other stuff that they could blame on all the other men that didn't do anything, that were actually heroes, just so they weren't actually heroes and couldn't be shown any kind of character development or improvement. No, we've got to show that they're flawed, and we've got to make them just cry about their feelings. We jump into the White Tower with Moiraine, Lan, and Nynaeve, and they're all in one of the studies, and she's like, you should need to stay here, because this way you'll be hidden in secret. But they talk, and Nynaeve does the normal thing of, oh, I'm just going to be here, and I'm going to randomly threaten you, and it just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I mean, she's just channeled, apparently, for the first time, even though that's literally impossible, because she's 26, and they always channel a lot younger, and she's actually a wilder in the books, where she's already been channeling for ages on her own, except she builds up a block to protect herself so she doesn't burn out. But in this, all of that goes out the window, and you've got to ignore all of that. So now she's literally channeled for the first time, and she decides to threaten Moiraine and Lan. She's like, you need to fear me. And then at least Moiraine and Lan look at each other as if, oh my god, she is a completely insane lunatic. What are we doing to her? She is so incredibly annoying. And at least Nynaeve actually looks a bit embarrassed about it, but you'd think she'd understand by now after what happened with Lan. Stop threatening people that don't do you any harm and are of no threat to you for absolutely no reason, you lunatic. And then Nynaeve is like, I don't care about the Aes Sedai, I care about my people. That's the first Nynaeve thing that she's ever actually said throughout the rest of the entire series. And then she's like, look, I only care about them. I want to find them. And Moiraine goes, I've got eyes and ears on every door and every wall in the entire city. When they arrive, I'll know. And Nynaeve goes, but will you tell me? And Moiraine looks a bit abashed and she's like, okay, yeah, you actually caught me out in my lie there. So she's seeing through the Aes Sedai word games. The issue is, nothing ever comes from this. Rand and Matt have already entered the town and Moiraine doesn't know. But then Lan leaves and Moiraine starts talking to her and she's like, here's your feelings and you're feeling this and you're feeling this and you're feeling this and you're feeling this. And I felt the same. And you really need to stay here because all of the Aes Sedai, they've got all their own motives and plans and things, which is all true. And then Nynaeve just walks out on her own and ignores it all anyway. And you're like, what is going on? Because Moiraine is supposed to be a master manipulator. They can get anyone to do what she wants. But she can't even keep a little girl in her bedroom. So Perrin and Egwene are still with the Tinkers 1 month later, and literally nothing's happened. Last time we saw them, Perrin was like, look, there's something freaky about the Tinkers. They really creep me out and we need to leave. And then Egwene went, yes, if they really creep you out, we need to lead. A month later, they've still not left, but they have reached Tar Valon. They are right next to it. They are on its grounds almost, just across the river. They are so close. We made it, she says, which really would make sense because surely nothing can possibly happen to you this close to Tar Valon. Oops. Yeah, apparently, for reasons that completely not only elude me, but give me a migraine, the Whitecloaks can operate on the border of the White Tower, even though this guy literally has a whole jewelry set of Aes Sedai rings that he's murdered on his own belt. The Aes Sedai, the most powerful people in the world, don't just walk across a river, or like come on a boat across a river, and completely slaughter all of the Whitecloaks. The Whitecloaks were scared of the Aes Sedai because they were just people, and the Aes Sedai could nuke entire armies of them. And if they didn't, you better be sure the Warders would, because the Warders would not allow a threat to their Aes Sedai this close to their Aes Sedai, and there's no reason to. This isn't how the Whitecloaks acted, it's not how the Aes Sedai acted, this makes literally no sense, but apparently they dare come so close to the White Tower and act with impunity, and I really mean with impunity. Because Perrin and Egwene go, when they look and they see the Whitecloak, they don't try to hide, no, they just stand in full view and get noticed by him, and he's like, go and get those prisoners. And at this point I'm thinking, why? What? Why? Why those two specifically out of an entire train of people? Does he see them and go, oh my god, there's something weird about them? And it's obviously because he's met them before with Moiraine back in the trail. No, that's it. That's literally why he wants them. Well, the Tinkers don't want to let him to, so they join arms and put their bodies in the way. Yeah, that'll end well, and it ends as you expect, as the Whitecloaks just beat the living crap out of him, and I don't feel sorry for them at all. I didn't like the Tinkers in the books, and I don't like the Tinkers here. The ideology is stupid, it doesn't make any sense, and no one would ever stick to it. It is literally just putting yourself up to get beaten down at every turn, and you get nothing back for it, and it doesn't matter how many leaves you talk about, you're still going to come across as an idiot. But during this time, Perrin and Egwene run away with Aram. And Perrin's like, we can't just leave them. And I was like, don't worry, they won't kill them. But it doesn't matter because Mat and Egwene get caught anyway by horses that have gone around the back. Back to Rand, and he finds a book about the Krarithan cycle, which I can't pronounce because apparently I've pronounced it wrong for the last 30 years. And I'm probably never going to get this one right. And I'm glad that Rand has finally found this book because he needs to read the prophecy, as Moiraine clearly hasn't actually understood it, because if she had, she wouldn't be spouting half the twaddle that she has in this show so far. I'm not being funny, but
I am so sorry to my world. This is not what we want.
I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is meant to be, and I don't know whose idea it was. I'm going to put on the screen what Loial is meant to look like, and it's not this. He didn't just have weird hair and a big nose, and then they go, yeah, that's it. And also, he's barely taller than Rand. He's meant to be like 10 foot tall. And yes, here he is. He's just like, oh, I've just grown a bit. I'm just ever so slightly taller than you. Now, there is a couple of good lines with Loial where he's talking to Rand and he's like, you're an Aiel man. He's like, I'm not an Aiel man. I'm from the Two Rivers. You're an Aiel man from the Two Rivers. No, I'm not Aiel. He's like, you're an Aiel man from the Two Rivers who claims to be not an Aiel. That's weird. I like weird. I quite like that back and forth. But that is about all they actually achieved this entire episode between the two of them. And Loial's part is way bigger than that. What he finds from Rand is way bigger than that. But of course, they couldn't show any of that, because if they showed any of that, that would require Rand to be the main character. And he's not in this. And the thing about Loial is they've taken stuff from the books, but because they've changed how he looks, it no longer makes any sense. He's like, oh, when I first turned up, people were chasing me with daggers and swords, and I had to come here to escape them. And I'm like, yes, but that makes sense in the books where you look different and you're in Caemlyn. where you're 10 foot tall and you look like a Trolloc, so they thought you were a Trolloc, which is why they were trying to kill you. But now everything's changed. Now he's got this weird hair all over the place. He's not really that tall. He just looks like some big dude with a weird nose. He looks nothing like a Trolloc. And they're now in Tar Valon, where Trollocs are not just myths. It's not something they're scared of. They've got the White Tower right next to them that would protect them for a start. But Tar Valon would know what a Trolloc looked like, and he looks nothing like a Trolloc. So they wouldn't be scared, because they would know what a Trolloc looked like, and they would also know what an Ogier looks like. Once again, you make a change, it ripples outwards, and you can't track all of your changes because you're too stupid to actually understand what you're doing. So then you go back and you try and keep something in that you liked from the books, except now it doesn't make any sense because you've changed everything. You've changed all of the foundational stones that were underneath that led up to that made it actually fit into a cohesive pattern. So all you're left with is these crumbling bits and boulders of an actual fully building that you've just taken chunks out of and tried to rebuild the same building, and you're wondering why it looks like crap and keeps falling over. And also, at this point in the books, Rand has already been told something which he hasn't yet. And so when keeps getting told you look like an Aiel, it should be news to him. He should be surprised. He should keep wondering, what is it? Why does everyone keep saying that to me? But instead of all that, he's obsessed with a book about Jane Farstrider. But Jane isn't Jane the woman's name. It's not Jane. It's Jain. It was a dude. But apparently, no, that's not good enough anymore. As he says later on, I used to know a little girl who thought she was Jane Farstrider, and she thought she was reincarnated as Jane herself. And I don't know, this is one of two things. Either they've recast Jane Farstrider as a woman, or they literally only heard someone say the name and thought that Jane was literally Jane, the Jane, and just assumed it was a woman when it isn't. But let's face it, given everything else that they've put into this show, I'm just going to assume the worst of them, because that's generally what they've intended everywhere else, so it's the most accurate. So then we see Logain, and he's getting paraded through the town. People are lobbing fruit at him and rotten vegetables and all that kind of stuff. And Matt and Rand are on a balcony looking down at him. Now, this is a scene that used to be in Camelin. Again, they've shifted a load of the scenes from there over to Tar Valon. And he starts laughing when he sees Matt. It's very weird, and it kind of suggests that it's in Matt's head, and it's not actually him. Flashback to episode 1, where they would also see things that weren't actually happening. So I think you're meant to think that so you're supposed to think that Matt is channeling and all that kind of stuff. It's weird. I don't think it really contributes to anything. And quite honestly, the creepy laughing, I don't know. I don't think this adds anything to the plot. I really don't. Then Matt suggests a deal, like, okay, so if we become actually the dragon, which means we're men that can channel, so we're going to go insane, let's make a deal and we'll just, like, off each other. And if it's me, you do me. If it's you, then I'll do you. And it's like, okay, on one hand, you can kind of see it, but on the other, the dragon is literally meant to save the world. And so if you're told that you're going to save the world, but also do it great harm, you'd probably be like, okay, I'll do it great harm, but I'll also save the world. But if I die, then everybody will, so I probably shouldn't. Next, we're back to the boring, depressed guy who still hasn't done what he needs to do and just carries on being boring and depressed. The warders are trying to cheer him up, and it's like, no, that's not going to work. You can't do this. Like, literally, he needs his bond replaced, or it's already over, and it should have been over a month ago. I don't know why it isn't, and I don't know why this keeps dragging on. And in this scene, even when the Sedai is dead, he's still, like, completely submissive to her. It's like, oh, she gave me the honor of being her friend. And he's like, what about you, dude? I mean, you're literally her bodyguard. She couldn't have done anything without you. You were literally the one that were enabled to do anything, because while she's channeling one way, you're the person that guards her back. Like, the warders are, like, some of the best fighters in the world. These people weren't anything. It's like, no, but I just live to serve her. This really is what Raf's version of perfect masculinity is. It's like, yes, okay, you can be men, you can even talk to other men, but you really should just admit that you should be honored to serve a woman's boots, even though she's going to be the cause of your death. I mean, this really is Raf's perfect vision for masculinity. Everything the warders do seems to be what he wants men to be, and that is not only be submissive, but you should be grateful that a woman dares even let you be in her presence for a long time. It's not reciprocal. It's not like the warder bond between Aes Sedai and warder actually gave things to both people and was mutually beneficial, and even though it was different, it was two hands working together to achieve something. It's not like that's literally the entire theme of the books. No, for Rafe, the ward bond is entirely one-sided, and it's literally women just letting men be in their presence. And they should be honored. Oh, Rafe. Next, we're back with the Whitecloaks, and I hope you're ready for pain, because there's about to be a lot of pain. And not for Perrin, I mean for me. First, they start cleaning up Egwene, and, yeah, they don't do it to Perrin. I could understand this. They're supposed to be just fervent servants for the light. These are basically sort of religious radicals beyond anything you could possibly imagine. They even smell wrong to certain people simply because they're just so rabid in their faith that they will do anything. These weren't innately bad people. They thought they were serving the light. Yeah, they may attract the odd bad person into their ranks, but overall, they're just rabidly religious. And so what this is meant to be is, I assume, going, oh, look what they're doing to women. They're treating women really badly, because they're not doing it to Perrin. Even though I think it's meant to be, yes, you're dirty, you're tainted, you would need Tar Valon, and so we need to clean you and purge you of this dirt and filth of the outside so that you can actually be put into the presence of the Whitecloaks, which kind of makes sense. If you did it to both of them, but they're both going to do it, and yet we only see it done here to her. I mean, unless you just kind of say, you know, oh, this is what men do to women, you know, all men in positions of power do this to women all the time whenever they get the opportunity. They don't do it to men. They do it to women, though. I mean, you have to remember as well, the last time we ran into the Whitecloaks, the guy basically did this to Moiraine as well, putting all of his hands all over her in a really creepy way. I mean, it's not what the Whitecloaks did. It's not what they're meant to do. But it's what they do here. So they get brought in front of the questioner. And Egwene gets her hands tied down, even though Aes Sedai don't need their hands to channel, so it leaves literally nothing. And what follows in this scene is probably one of the most stupid scenes I've ever seen by one of the most stupid characters I've ever seen. They have written this poor bloke so awfully and so stupidly that he probably shouldn't be in another episode, because there's no coming back from just how they've decimated him as a person, as him as a character. Even in this scene right now, and even when he's the one in power, he's talking to Egwene, and she's like, well, I can't channel. And he says, well, that proves one thing. You're not an Aes Sedai because Aes Sedai can't lie. Which means when he met Moiraine and he's like feeling her shoulders and stuff and feels her like armored shoulder pads, he didn't just ask her, hey, love, you an Aes Sedai? It's like that would have outed it to him right then and there. But no, apparently, even though he knows they can't lie because he knows the three O's, I mean, everyone knows the three O's, so of course the Whitecloaks would. And the thing is, if he knows that Aes Sedai can't lie, and an Aes Sedai told him that women don't need the hands to channel, then why is he cutting off women's hands? Because he knows they don't need their hands to channel, and he got told it by somebody that can't lie, and yet here we are, he's still cutting off their hands, which means he's not cutting off their hands so they can't channel, he's cutting off their hands because he enjoys it and he wants to. They've written the Whitecloaks as sadists rather than basically religious zealots, and it's so one-dimensional and basic and really does them a disservice. They weren't like that. That's not what they were like. Now, the odd questioner, yes, did really enjoy torturing people. The Whitecloaks themselves had an organizational structure, and if you found that you were torturing people, they would kill you. So nobody got very high without also being able to prove things. And yeah, when you captured somebody who actually could be tortured to death, that's what you could do. As long as you could justify it, that's what you could do. But his justification here is that he's seen them twice. I've seen them once moving along a road, and then I saw them later on moving along a road, and that's it. He has no reason to think Egwene can channel, and in fact, she says she can't, and he knows that Aes Sedai can't lie, so he knows she's not an Aes Sedai, so the only reason he can think is if he thinks, like, she's a novice or an accepted, which would make sense if he's because he got her right next to Tar Valon. That doesn't make sense because if the Whitecloaks were taking novices and accepted away from the White Tower, then the Aes Sedai would come out and slaughter all of them. And they didn't. They just let them operate with impunity on their own territory. So none of this makes any sense, and it only gets worse because he gives her an ultimatum. And he says, look, essentially, I think you can channel. The light has shown you me twice, and that must mean that you can channel and I need to do something. So I'm going to give you a test. So he gives her an ultimatum, and he says, look, one of you's going to die. It's either going to be, you're going to channel, and I'll kill you, or you're not going to channel, and I'll kill Perrin. And his logic really, really doesn't make any sense. But there's only two possibilities in this guy's mind. Either, essentially, she's an Aes Sedai and Perrin's her warder, or she's not an Aes Sedai and Perrin isn't her warder. In which case, his entire analogy, his entire ultimatum, doesn't make any sense, because if she channels, she dies, and he lets her warder go free, except they think that warders are dark friends. Or you've got an Aes Sedai that just decided not to channel and let her warder die, and her warder would be fully willing to sacrifice himself for that. So either way, whatever happens, it doesn't mean he's captured an Aes Sedai, and he's almost certainly killed an innocent person, or killed a guilty person and let a guilty person go away. So he's managed to go up with an ultimatum that has the grand total of not actually discovering what he wants to discover, and almost certainly killing an innocent person, or only killing one dark friend and letting another dark friend go. Like, literally, not a single situation does he actually achieve what he wants to achieve. And the worst thing is, this situation removes Perrin's main storyline, his main plot point from episode 1, where it really shows what it's like to be a man. Because by now, Perrin has met Elias, and Elias has taught Perrin about wolves. And during this time, Whitecloaks come across them, and they don't want to be found. So Elias and the wolves attack the Whitecloaks, and Perrin and Egwene run away and try and hide. So while the wolves are attacking the Whitecloaks and Elias is attacking the Whitecloaks, the Whitecloaks are they're in disarray, some of them being killed, and they're fighting off the wolves. But the Whitecloaks are still hunting Perrin and Egwene, and there's a bit where Perrin is with Egwene, and they're sort of hiding in this rock formation. And Perrin realizes what would happen to Egwene if they're caught by the Whitecloaks. He realized what they'd do to her, and he doesn't want her to suffer. He doesn't want her to go through that pain. And so he actually thinks, what will I do? What will I do if we're discovered? And he realizes he'll kill her. Perrin will kill Egwene just so she doesn't have to go through the pain and the torment of actually being captured by the Whitecloaks. And that is what makes him struggle with violence. That is when he realizes what he's capable of. He's willing to kill his friend, and he hates himself for it, because he realizes that killing her would be awful, and it would really affect him. It would be disastrous to him. It would be disastrous to him in his conscience. But at the same time, it's probably the best thing to do, because it's better it would be a mercy killing, and it would be better for that to happen to you than to go through the horror that they would do to you if you were captured. And that is such a far better idea. That is far better foundation of struggling with violence and struggling about what it's like to be a man, that you will take on that agony just to protect someone you care about. Whereas in this, they've taken that away. They've taken that sacrificial nature of masculinity away from Perrin, and instead, now he killed his wife. Because one is masculine, one is good, and the other is, men bad, men stupid, men kill women, which is far more up Rafe's street of how we should treat people. And all of this is because we can't have a man save a woman. No, the woman's powerful now, the woman can save herself. And so they had to get rid of that entire plot, and because they got rid of that, that's why they had to invent his wife. And anyone that was watching season 1 should have known that. When they had his wife, he should have known that plot point. And so anyone that goes, oh, it was all fine, it's fine. I mean, it's fine he killed his wife. It doesn't change him at all. It completely changes his character, and it only gets worse in this scene. But Egwene is like negotiating, begging with Valder. She's like, no, I'm just a little girl from a mountain town. Please, just let me go. Just let me go. And it's like, okay, finally, you're acting like Egwene. Egwene, at this point, she literally can barely channel. She's not had any training. She's done basically nothing in her entire life. She's just been sat in a little tiny village. She's not used to the world. She certainly wouldn't stand up to people like Valder. She would be scared crapless. This is why she lets Perrin be in charge, the big, bulky alpha male who actually is intimidating to people around the world. Egwene isn't intimidating, and so she let Perrin lead. But in this, that all changes, because now she's begging, oh, please just let me go. At least she's begging until he puts a knife at her neck, and then she's like, no, I will be reincarnated into the wheel and I will make you suffer. And it's just like, Nynaeve, like, what are you doing? You are in no position to threaten these people, and I don't know why we have to keep writing Nynaeve and Egwene as characters that will threaten people from positions of weakness that they can do nothing about to people who are far stronger than they are, because it makes them look like whiny, pathetic children. And I know it's meant to make them look strong, but if you're in no position to actually do anything about it, it just makes you look like a moron who doesn't understand your capabilities or even the situation you're in. You are not in charge here.
I'm sorry.
Because she says, I can't channel, and you're a man of the light, and a man of the light can't kill an innocent person. And he just grins and goes, who makes you think I'm a man of my oaths? It's like, oh, he's just basic evil, is he? The Whitecloaks are just basic evil now. One-dimensional basic evil. Screw all the fervent religious zealots. Yeah, screw all the walk in the light. Now they don't walk in the light. Now they're just a random person. No, now they're just evil. It's so boring and dull and obvious. Oh... There's no depth to these people, and even if you want to show characters which are like this, because you can, because they're in the Whitecloaks, you should show the Whitecloaks as they are first, as they behave first. Get the audience used to what the Whitecloaks are, and then start showing the exceptions. Then start showing the people that break the mold, because then they're like, hang on, they're not acting like Whitecloaks, what's going on here? And it has more of an impact. Whereas now, you're just tarring all of the Whitecloaks with this brush. Egwene, angry face, threatening people she actually can't actually follow through with. That makes them very scared of her. And because he's given them this ultimatum and Egwene's just threatened to come back and as a ghost and haunt him or something, he starts to torture Perrin. Yeah, I mean, she's threatened you, and you think she's the dark friend that can channel, but you should probably definitely torture this innocent bloke that you've got no reason to believe has actually done anything. That makes complete sense, and that's definitely not someone that walks in the light would do. You have to remember as well, while they've taken it from the books that Perrin was the one that got beaten by the Whitecloaks, they didn't take why. In the books, when they were captured, Perrin actually had already talked with the wolves. The wolves are attacking the Whitecloaks, as I said. But then when the Whitecloaks actually find him and Egwene, a wolf comes out and tries to save Perrin, and the Whitecloaks kill the wolf. And so, because the Whitecloaks kill that wolf, Perrin loses it and just attacks the Whitecloaks with his double-bladed axe and kills two of them. So when Perrin actually gets brought into the Whitecloak camp, now the Whitecloaks are angry and they just want him dead, and they're actually taking Perrin to die. So nobody cares what happens to Perrin because he's killed one of their own. It makes sense. But in this, as far as this guy knows, he's probably torturing an innocent person, and he's leaving someone he thinks is guilty scot-free. And also in the books, when they are captured, they have no reason to think Egwene can channel. They don't here. And they also, even though they know there's something weird going on with Perrin due to the wolves, because when the wolves attack them, they know he's not an Aes Sedai, and they know he's not a warder, and they know it's nothing to do with the One Power. It's a completely separate thing. And because of that, they don't think he's a Dark Friend. So they would have let him go if he hadn't killed the Whitecloaks, because they don't go around randomly killing people. But they do here. But while he's getting this, we do get the yellow eyes. Now, again, in the books, the Whitecloaks knew what this was. They'd heard about this, so the yellow eyes didn't scare them. It didn't have any big impact. But in this, he has to get woken up by pain rather than meeting Elias, who was a far better character. And honestly, we could have had Elias rather than all of this waffle in this episode, and episode 4, and episode 3. Oh, we could have had such a good show. And Egwene's like, why are you doing this to him? And Valda's just like, well, because we humans are not meant to touch the One Power. You walk around this nation as gods. And I'm like, hang on, as God, you're supposed to think they're evil. Most people don't refer to evil people as gods. Gods that tend to be linked to good things. You'd call them demons, devils, witches. The Whitecloaks thought of them as witches. These are all derogatory terms, things linked to evil and nastiness and black magic. But to call them a god? Valda, it's almost like you're admitting they're above you. And then Nynaeve goes completely against what Moiraine has said, and she just leaves her quarters, despite the fact that she was told to literally stay in there to hide, otherwise you'll get taken by the Aes Sedai. No, she just leaves because she obviously knows better. And Leandrin comes, and they start talking about the warder bond and stuff, and she says, Reds don't have warders. She goes, no. And Nynaeve goes, that's because you hate men. And she's like, is that a question or a statement? And then we get the quote of the century. Full mask off.
Women hold the one power, but men still control much of this world. And they are rarely kind to little girls who show a spark of being greater than they are.
Whoa, boyo, there is your gender studies degree right there. Look, the worst thing about that isn't just that the statement is just so Twitter-like, just imposed onto a TV series. It's that it's not true. It's not true. Look, in this, there are so many queens and everything else that rule the world. Even in the Two Rivers, where Nynaeve is from, although it had the men's circle who thought they were in charge, it keeps saying that actually the women's circle is in charge because they're the wives of the men's circle, and they actually pull the strings of the men and get it done. So the men think they're leading, but actually it's the women that get everything done over there. And then you've got things like Lords of Queens that rule all of the empires. You've got Inaction, which is literally ruled by a woman with almost totalitarian, authoritarian control. And then you've got the Aiel, who are just literally run by another sort of circle of women that get together and do it. Then you've got the Aes Sedai, which are obviously all women, and then they actually go, and I think every single leader in all of the realm, either in public or in secret, has an Aes Sedai advisor who basically pulls their strings and controls basically everything. So I would say if women are control of literally everything in the world and there's still problems and you're still suffering, have you ever considered it might be your fault? And the thing is, I know they've done this because she's a Red. I know they're going to use that as an excuse. Or it's just what the Reds would say. And you know what? I'd agree with you. I would completely and utterly agree with you and accept that as an answer. If it wasn't in every other facet of the show, in every episode that we've ever had, with every writing change that there's ever been, which has all contributed to this same idea. Men bad, women good. Men can't be heroes. Women actually can be heroes. Men can't be men. Women should be men. Men can't have good plot lines. Women should have all the good plot lines. Men can't save women. No, women have to save themselves. Then women save men. Everything is rewritten to all back up this same talk, and this is just the mask-off century of the decade. But don't worry, because there's no pushback. Nynaeve doesn't even go, oh no, I don't think that's true. She just accepts it, even though in the village she's literally grown up in her entire life. It's already not true. Not just because in the books it says that the women's circle leads the Two Rivers. No, here there isn't even a men's circle. As far as Nynaeve knows, in her entire life, women have been in charge of literally her entire world. But don't worry, because someone said it was different, and so obviously it must be true because she's got access to the internet or something. Now, this seems like a good point in time to say that Moiraine did say that she's got eyes and ears on every gate, on every wall, and as soon as Rand and Mat enter the Tar Valon, she'll know. Except she didn't. It's just so far, they're still in this inn. They still have done absolutely nothing. Moiraine has done nothing, even though these are the most important people on Earth and literally could be responsible for saving the entire world if one of them's the Dragon Reborn. No, she actually doesn't care about that. She's got better things to do, like washing her hair or something. And so, in that case, Liandrin was actually the one that said Nynaeve should probably go out to the gardens. Except Loial was there, and so he found her, and he brought her to Rand and Mat. Now, considering Nynaeve has been told that every single Aes Sedai has their own agenda and doesn't say anything for no reason, you'd think Nynaeve at this point would be going, why is she telling me to go to the gardens? Did she plan this? Did she know Loial was there, and did she know Loial knew these people? Because it seemed like a big coincidence, but apparently no one's thought of that yet. And it's also proof that Nynaeve did what Liandrin said. Now, she didn't do what Moiraine said, the one that she's supposed to trust. Moiraine told her to stay in her bedroom. She went out. But the moment Liandrin, the bigot, tells her that actually, no, you should go out and go to the gardens, she's like, yeah, you know, she hates men, she's a bigot, I'll definitely do what she says. She's trustworthy. Oh, God, this entire show's got its moral compass twisted upside down. But now we've reached a point in time where Nynaeve, with absolutely no powers, no spy network or anything, no contacts, has found Rand and Mat a lot faster. But Nynaeve goes over to him and she has no idea what's wrong with him. And Rand goes, yeah, we think he can channel. And then she goes the really weird thing of, yeah, what we'll do, we'll gather everyone else and then we'll sort it. It's like, what? You realize that men channeling, and if he can channel, he's going to go the same way. Men channeling was the reason the world got destroyed. Men go insane and destroy the world. And you think you could just handle it? What, you're going to go off into a mountain until he goes mad and kills all of you and then destroys the world? Is that your plan? Is that your plan, Nynaeve? Because it sounds like a moronic plan, I've got to be honest. We'll just get together and then through the power of family, we'll solve everything. It's not a plan. It's not an idea. It's a Disney story, but it's about the quality of writing I would expect from the show. And the ask about Egwene and what follows is a direct contradiction to the books. And now they've come out post this episode and given another contradiction to this story, and it makes the story not make any sense. And the only thing that you can possibly get from it is woman power. No, seriously, this episode is so bad. It is so bad. She goes and she tells a story of Egwene, where again, something called breakbone fever, essentially where your muscles keep clamping and clamping and clamping, they keep clamping tighter, and to the point where it will literally pull like your arm or your legs or whatever the wrong way and dislocate all of your bones, and it eventually kills you. It says that Egwene got this as a child, and her legs were bending the wrong way and everything else. But Nynaeve sat there, and she held her hand, and they got through the night together like that. Egwene actually put up with the immense pain that she would have been through, and she survived. And she says, because she's strong, that's how I know she'll be strong now. But the book had a slightly different twist on that. The book was like Egwene was going through all of this stuff, and Nynaeve's sort of master, the wisdom, tried to treat her and said she basically couldn't do anything for her. So Nynaeve went up to her and she decided that she would stay with her and hold her hand. And she cured Egwene. Like, she literally, that was the first time Nynaeve ever channeled. And she channeled, she cured Egwene and healed her, and that's how she survived the night. It's not a story about Egwene being strong. It's a story about Nynaeve actually becoming a wilder. Which makes sense. And it would have made sense in this story. Except that Rafe has now come out and he goes, no, the first time Nynaeve has ever channeled is last episode in the cave, which means in this story with Egwene, she wasn't channeling, which means that Egwene is now just super strong and survived it on her own without any help from the one power from Nynaeve. So he's taken a story and he's deliberately demolished it, because that way, in the original story, you only had the story of one woman actually being strong, and now you've got the story of two. Cut to Egwene, and through the power of fallopian tubes, she can do it on her own. She can do anything. And so she's trying to channel without using her hands to actually free herself from her bonds. Why? Because she doesn't really have any choice. You see, Velda has left the tent. They're not guarded. He's not in there. They can escape. This is a man who thinks that she can channel. And if she can channel, she can probably destroy his entire army. But no, don't worry about that, because we're just going to leave her completely unguarded and just see what happens. Now, at this point, they almost had a good story. They did. Like, they got rid of Elias and everything else, so they ruined Perrin's motivation, but they still could have done it. Perrin still could have acted like a man. But no, they had to take that away from him as well. Look, it's sort of instinctual in all men. Men protect women, men guard women, men sacrifice themselves for women. That's done throughout all history. That's why men fight. That's why men go to war. That's why on the Titanic, all of the men get together and go, look, we'll go down with the ship while the women and children go off first. This is instinctual. This is bred into us. This is part of evolution. And it's innate in, like, vast majority of all men. Not Perrin, though. No, you can't have that for Perrin, because that would be traditional, stereotypical male behavior. It would be a positive characteristic, and so it must be destroyed. And this is also why Perrin had a wife. Because everybody knew this was coming. If you knew the books, you knew this moment was coming. First, you would have had the thing before, where you knew why Perrin struggled with violence. And it was because of the original thing where he thought, I realize what I will do to Egwene to save Egwene. Even though it will be horrible, it will be a mercy. And he couldn't handle the fact that he realized what he was capable of. But in this situation, Perrin would have gladly sacrificed himself for Egwene, because that is what men do. And so you had both of those things on one side, that the audience would expect a certain behavior, and both of those were positive characteristics, and so must be eradicated. And so they gave him a wife, and then they had him kill her. because now there is no positive characteristics. Now he's not doing anything for a positive reason. Now he's just a sad, depressed little whiny brat who just wants to die because he deserves it. Now it's not about helping Egwene. It's not about being good. It's simply about feeling guilty, as he should, because Perrin's just a man after all. Oh, boy. Oh, you can't believe it. They set all of this up from episode 1 so they could get to this point just to crap on Perrin. And this is why I had such an issue with him killing his wife in the first episode. This is why I didn't accept him killing his wife in the first episode, because I knew the knock-on effects. When I'm like, yeah, well, that's something that has a knock-on effect later on. That's like it sends ripples out in time and you're not going to be able to track them and it's going to cause other problems. I'm not just saying that because I can't see where it's going and I think, oh, wait, well, maybe it will cause a problem. No, I'm saying that because I know what's happening in the future and I know this was going to happen. Yeah, don't worry about all of Perrin's struggle actually being due to the fact that he wanted to protect Egwene. No, now it's just about guilt because he murdered people, because he's a horrible person. Perrin isn't a hero, he's a horrible, horrible person. And then, I have to be honest, I burst out laughing because I think this is the funniest part of the show, and I don't think it was intentional at all. Because Valda comes back in, and he's like, look, no decision is still a decision. I'm just going to keep attacking Perrin until he eventually bleeds out. And Egwene's like, no, Perrin, it wasn't your fault. It was an accident. And it may take you the rest of your life to realize that, but you will realize that. And I'm like, this girl's completely burning Perrin. I mean, he's literally being killed in front of her eyes, and she's going, look, mate, it may take you the next 30 minutes to realize it, but it was an accident, I promise. You better realize it quick, though, because he's really going hard with that knife. It was like... It was dark humor, but it was good humor. Unfortunately, that's not what the writers wrote. This is a woman who's literally had about 5 seconds training with Moiraine. She couldn't barely do anything before, but now that's not a problem because through the power of estrogen, we can do it, lads. We can do it, right? She manages to channel just all on her own without using her hands or anything else. This is someone with no training. Despite the fact that the White Tower specifically exists to teach people how to do this, because without the White Tower, you can't do this. That's never stopped Egwene before. This is a woman that's literally done nothing except live in a village. Well, now she's saving the world, and she channels and she attacks Valda with her little tiny flame. And at this point, Valda kind of laughs it off because she sends like fire at him, and he doesn't even blink. And he's let this possible Aes Sedai channel right in front of him, and he's not scared. They were unguarded, and he's not scared. So I think Valda has like some ancient tool which actually stops the weaves touching him, why he isn't scared of channelers and probably why he's captured so many in the past without being able to do anything. Doesn't stop Egwene, though. Egwene's got another plan. What she does is she channels fire into the rope, which is a decent strategy if you can't do anything else. Look, if you can't actually take down the big bloke, do something smaller. And Perrin gets free and he stands up, and you can see the look of shock on his face. But what happens next makes zero sense. This is Valda, a questioner, someone which has seen everything. He knows everything. The Whitecloaks know all about Dark Friends and all the little powers. He would fully understand what he's seeing, but even if he didn't, what happens doesn't make sense. You see, Perrin goes full golden eyes. He is completely awoken at this point through the pain and the terror and everything else. He's kind of activated the ancient power inside of him. But let's face it, all Valda's seeing is a guy with golden eyes. It's not really that scary. You can growl as much as you want at me, mate. I wouldn't be that scared, and Valda certainly shouldn't. Except he is. This guy is absolutely petrified. And he does nothing. Like, he freezes in fear, drops his sword, and then, like, cowers in front of him. And it makes no sense. This is a guy that leads armies. And, what, you're telling me just because he's scared he wouldn't attack? If he doesn't understand what he's seeing, he's going to think that Perrin is a Dark Friend, and Whitecloaks kill Dark Friends. He'd at least stab him with the sword or attack him, and he does nothing. He cowers like a coward. And all they're doing, they are literally using the all bullies are cowards secretly trope. That's actually what they're doing. Don't be afraid of bullies, because actually, if you become more powerful than them, they will cower in a corner and cry. And look, that's good advice if you're in high school and you need to teach something to a 10-year-old. Probably shouldn't be in Wheel of Time, though. Probably not for the Whitecloaks, Not for a person like this. But at least now there's a chance for redemption, because Perrin is free, and Perrin has acted like a little coward the entire time. He's been led around the entire time. Oh no, I can't do anything, I'm just so guilty. But now he can actually do something good and save Egwene like the man he is. No. Yeah, we can't have that. No, we can't have something as stupid as a man saving a woman. No, we can't do that. No, Egwene has to save herself because she don't need no man. Now, that's the thing. She can do everything on her own. And so, even though Perrin is literally free and can do whatever he wants to Valda, to the point where Valda is petrified and drops his knife, that Perrin just stands there and does nothing. Valda just stands there and does nothing. But Egwene magically teleports out of her chair, grabs the knife, and just appears out of nowhere. That is Game of Thrones. That is exactly what happened at the end of Game of Thrones. And they saw that. They thought that was good writing. And they did it here. We just can't have Perrin saving Egwene. We can't do that. She's too strong for that. She can save herself. So then they leave the tent and they find out the wolves have actually attacked the Whitecloaks. And honestly, it's like, well, if you did this here, why didn't you do this first? Like, why didn't you stick to the books and do this first? Because it would have been far better and it would have helped Perrin, but you can't have that because you wanted to destroy Perrin, so now you've moved the wolf afterwards. And also, if you'd followed the books at this point, it wouldn't have been the wolves saving Perrin. No, it would have been Lan. So however you spun it, in any situation, a man was going to save Egwene from Whitecloaks, but not in this. And then we get this bit where a wolf actually walks straight up to him, and Perrin's like, don't worry, they won't hurt us. And Egwene's like, well, how do you know? And I'm thinking the same thing, because there's more to Perrin's power than actually it shows at this point. But even with Perrin's power, this wolf shouldn't be acting this way. He's literally snarling at them. And look, everyone knows with body language, if a wolf is doing that to you, it's either warning you, stay away or I'm going to bite you, or he's going to bite you. That's not friendly. Everyone knows that's not friendly. And here, it's not friendly. So even given Perrin's future power, the wolf wouldn't be doing that if it was friendly. Now, finally, there's a scene I actually liked. And this is the Liandrin and Moiraine one. And she's kind of hinting that, like, you have to remember, Liandrin is the one that got Nynaeve away from the White Tower. She entered the gardens, and I'm pretty sure she knew Loial was there and where Loial would take her. So now Liandrin is like, you don't have Nynaeve. And she's like, look, I'm sure she's hidden away. You must know where she is. And Moiraine obviously can't admit it. And so she's basically just winding her up. Like making her doubt herself and maybe realize. But you have to remember, at this point, and it's been a long time, Moiraine's eyes and ears still haven't found Rand and Mat. Like, this only works if Moiraine is a moron. Like, she has to be completely stupid and completely inept, because Liandrin is rubbing it in that Moiraine doesn't know where Nynaeve is. Except she would if she knew where Rand and Mat was. And she should, because she had eyes and ears on every gate and wall everywhere else. So all of her bragging, all of her ability as a blue Ajar to have spy networks everywhere, and she is completely and utterly incompetent. This scene says that Moiraine actually, it's not that she didn't bother to go to them. It's not that she thought, oh yeah, I didn't need to save them. They'll be fine where they are. It's that she doesn't know they're even in Tar Valon, because her spies never told her. Because they're crap, and she hires crap ones, and that means she's incompetent. So, I don't know. Everything in this plot always seems to try and, we'll just hide these people off to a corner. We'll just keep these people in the background. But they don't realize that if you're the person pulling the strings, and Moiraine is, it just makes her look stupid. And I genuinely don't think they actually want to make Moiraine look stupid, but that's the only actual logical conclusion you can bring. And I don't know what this is. This is like Liandrin creepily touching her face. I actually can't remember if back in the days of their training they knew each other and they were like pillow friends. Maybe that's what this is hinting at. Can't really remember. Either way, Moiraine doesn't like it and yet is letting it go on. Odd. Like me, personally, don't think it takes much to do that. If I was Moiraine, I'd definitely like batting that creepy hand away, but maybe that's just me. And then she implies that actually, as Moiraine will be away from the tower a lot, Nynaeve will just be in there learning to be an Aes Sedai, and she won't be able to influence her. But Liandrin will, and she implies that actually she'll choose the red. And Moraine's like, do you really think she'll choose a red? What, someone whose first act was to heal a man? And she's like, well, yeah, you may be right about that. But also, she thinks everyone would be better off if they just obeyed her rules. And the Reds are nothing if they're after complete totalitarian control. Which I have to agree is basically Nynaeve all over. But personally, I really do like the unintentional insinuation there that Reds hate men. Reds also want totalitarian control and everyone to obey them. Therefore, men and masculinity equals freedom and individuality. Based. This is the Warders making sacrifices at an altar to fend off the Forsaken like a Shamiel. And he's got like little icons of them there in a shrine. To me, this looks more like worship. If anything with this, I think you'd probably be attracting them, not scaring them away. It genuinely looks like you're just going, oh, praise the Dark Lord at this bit. It's creepy. I don't like it. And this is something they've just created because they think they're good writers. And no. So Moiraine is talking to the green that you saw in the last episode, the one with multiple warders that keep getting freaky in the tent. Yes, they love their threesomes, that one. And she has 2 male warders. And she's like, look, don't you want a third? And this is at least accurate. Basically, there was one way that male warders had even had a chance to survive. The way you got over your last one is you get your leg over a new one, and you were often actually bonded to another Aes Sedai. And among the Aes Sedai, this wasn't a male belief. This was what the female Aes Sedai actually planned. As you were more, they thought a man was more likely to survive if the Aes Sedai actually took them to their beds as well as their bond. So this actually does make sense. So this attitude actually happened. And now I don't know so much about what they do in the next bit, but the idea and the basis behind it was definitely true. If you want the Warders to survive, this is what you do. So Moiraine is being completely selfless here and trying to save the poor guy's life. And I can even understand the other woman's hesitation, because she will feel what her new warder feels. And he will still feel the loss from the other bond, it just won't be as bad. But it'll now be shared. So it is a sacrifice on both halves to do it, but at the end of the day, it is the only way to save the guy's life. You don't have to take him to bed, that's just an added bonus. And you also take on the risk, if he's still not happy and he still does decide that I just can't live anymore, then now she's lost a warder, and that also has a knockback effect on her, although it doesn't have a severe effect on the Aes Sedai as it does on the warders when they lose their Aes Sedai. Next up for Wheel of Time TV series lore, the warder bond makes you gay. I'm not making that up. That's literally, that's in the TV series. That's literally what it does. That's what they said. Like, they're having this discussion, probably the weirdest discussion I've ever seen in a TV series. I don't know why any of this needed to be said, but here we are, yes. He's literally like, okay, I've accepted that I should probably be bonded by another Aes Sedai. Okay, you've all taught me into it. I realize if I don't have it, I'm going to die. Fine. But she's already got 2 warders, and she sleeps with both of them at the same time. And he's like, well, maybe when I get bonded, she'll want to do that to me. And they'll want to do that to me. And the problem is he's straight. And it's like, oh yeah, when you just get the warder bond, suddenly you just switch. Yeah, when you get the warder bond, you just start batting for the other team all of a sudden. Your entire life just goes out of the window, obviously. I mean, now, you probably can't choose your preferences, but when you get bonded, now apparently you can, and it's just all changing. It doesn't matter what you are, it's not fixed anymore. It's not a requirement. It's like, it's not literally a requirement that if Aes Sedai has 10 warders, they all have to communally do it with each other. You could split off and do it individually. That's possible, but not in this one. No, now it's all or nothing. He has to either go with the Aes Sedai and just magically start loving dangly bits, or die. That's literally the question that they've given him. You have to now change and bat for the other team and get it shoved up you, or you're gonna die. What a marvelous philosophical question that this TV series has decided to raise. He chose death. I'm not sure that this is the message the show meant to put across, But that's the message they've achieved. This guy knew what would happen to him. Now it's canon, apparently, to me the TV show isn't canon, that if you get bonded by a green, not only will you end up in her bed, but you will end up with her warders. And it doesn't matter whether you wanted to before, you'll want to now. And this guy understood that. He knew that. The Wonders discussed it. The Wonders discussed it. And rather than accept it, he just couldn't take it anymore. He would rather take the sharp end of the stick and completely leave the world. This is like the ultimate question of would you shag that person or would you rather die? And he just went, no, I'm dead, I'm going. There is not a chance in hell. I have seen what those two do. Have you seen their weightlifting routine? They would destroy me. I'm definitely not going in there. I can't believe it. I can't believe they put this in the show. Everything about this is wrong. And it's like, if anybody else did this, people would be up in arms. I can't believe you've done this. I don't know why you're sending this message. This is disgusting. You're a bigot. But because the rest of the show is so incredibly woke, I think they'll get away with it. I don't think anyone will even complain. I don't think they'll barely even notice and put two and two together because they've all committed to the cause. Everything in this episode was done to destroy men, and then they just stick this in at the end as their own little message. I don't know what Raf's beliefs are. Whoa. Oh boy. I can't believe this was written in. I can't believe it went through post. I can't believe it got signed off by everyone it needed to be signed off from. And then someone at Amazon watched this and went, yeah, that'll be fine. And then we get the emotional ending. Lan cries like a little girl in front of public. This isn't how men behave. Men don't do this. Look, there's loads of people that think, oh, men just don't have emotions. And you know who those people are? Women. Because if something happens, there's one rule that is important above all others. If a problem happens, you have one rule. You handle it on your feet. You face it like a man. Whatever comes, you face it like a man. You are stoic. You put those feelings to the side, deal with the problem. Or there's another place where men handle it, in a room, surrounded by other men, probably drunk. What they don't do is this, with women there. What they don't do is do it in front of women. What they don't do is do it in front of women which they think like them. Because if they did before, they're not going to afterwards. This is known, this is instinctual, this isn't learned behavior, this is just basic, sort of animalistic, evolved behavior that men and women have grown into, and it doesn't matter how many TV shows you try and show men crying in, it's not ever going to take off, because this is deeper than that. Men don't do this, men would never do this, and the fact that this happens and we have to see this in public is embarrassing for everyone involved. There's nobody who will watch this that didn't think, oh, that's so stunning and brave. So up until this point, I've been like, Lan is probably been my favourite character because he's basically the only one that's actually allowed to be a man. I've even liked Moiraine until this episode. But now she's coming across like a real moron as well. So my two favourite characters, the strongest characters, the characters that I'm pretty sure Rafe is trying to make the main ones, alongside Nynaeve and Egwene, he's destroyed them in this. Because the writing is awful, the plot story is awful, and they've just completely humiliated them and humiliated Lan. And I don't know what this is, but the only people that came across with sort of any sign of kind of respect in this was Moiraine. It's like she managed to actually hold it together, but also understand what he's going through and show emotion at the same time, which, for Moiraine, fits in perfectly. So I think that actually does fit in with Moiraine, and I think she comes across okay in this scene. But Lan, I don't know what this is, but this isn't Lan. I don't know what this is, but this isn't warder behavior. Warder behaviors will literally go down, die with huge armies around them. Half of their friends in the army will get wiped out. And then they continue on and carry on because that's what you've got to do because it's war. And Lan has literally been in the Blight his entire life. Men will have followed him his entire life and they die in the Blight all the time. He would not get this emotional about a warder dying. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. And there's only one thing it reminds me of.
so sorry to my world. This is not what we want.
Now, for me, this episode is easily the worst one. Even in the others, there was still stuff I liked. There were still scenes that I liked, or sentences that I liked. And while, I thought episode 4 was boring, and I thought episode 3 was a waste of time, that was them making their own episode, their own stories, because they thought they could write better than the books. And so was this episode. But again, they failed. The amazing thing that I got out of it is I didn't think they'd actually go back to episode 1. I thought they were done with that. I thought, yes, they're going to do the whole woman power message. They're never going to do anything as mask off. They're never going to do anything as obvious and blunt and in your face and over the top. Because quite frankly, it ruined episode 1. And then they added it into this, and they ruined this episode as well. There were so many opportunities where they just didn't have to do that. They still could have done the rest, and it still would have had that girl power sort of message, but they just couldn't resist going that little bit further that turned it from just terrible writing to sheer stupidity that just ruins everything around it. And that's the kind of things that they do with Egwene. If they just let Perrin actually attack Valda, then okay, you could have recovered that scene, because at least it would have been a bit of balance. And that's what Perrin would have done. He wouldn't have restrained himself in that situation. We already know that when something happened to him in that kind of situation, he killed 2 Whitecloaks, he's capable of it. He kind of reacts that way when he's pushed. But in this, he just stood there and then Egwene saved herself. They had to make it stupid because they couldn't have Egwene be saved by Perrin. And this is just season 1. What are they going to do for the rest? They're so desperate for a woman to not show weakness to a man, or for a man not to show any positive, heroic characteristics or be able to save them, not to show any balance at all, that this is the problem. And I think it comes from the basic issue that these kind of hack writers are so used to other TV series. They're so used to other properties and writing for those things. And they not only can they not keep their real-world bigoted views out of things, but they're used to just depressing men and increasing women in everything. Because they're like, well, in this episode, men were put on top of women, so we have to balance it out. That's their kind of theory, whether it's true or not. And then you reach the Wheel of Time, where it's already equal. It was already done, and they don't think it was. Because it's not any kind of balance that they want. They don't want women to have weaknesses and men to have weaknesses, but them both to have strengths, and those things complement each other's. So one strength of one side complements the weaknesses of the other, and together they're stronger, which is the entire message of the series. They don't want that, because that would require some kind of work. That would require give and take. That would require women to still have weaknesses, and they can't. It would require men to help them, and they can't have that. So what they end up with, when they actually have something which has people on a sort of a different but equal level playing field, they have to change it anyway and just completely and utter dismantle any semblance of sanity that the show already had. If they started with some kind of unbalanced work, then maybe you could kind of come to something where you were still in some kind of reasonable realm that you could actually watch the show. But when you get this, if I wasn't doing these reviews, I probably would have stopped after episode 4. Episode 4 was so boring, I think I would have just stopped. No matter how much I loved the books, I would have finished it right there. From now on, I'm watching it for these videos, and it seems to be getting worse. The writing's on the wall. I don't think they're ever going to come back. This is what they want. And I think it's because they think they're better than the books. They think they're better than the source material. They don't like it. I genuinely believe Rafe doesn't like the Wheel of Time. I think he hates it. And he thinks it was so problematic and flawed, and all the characters are wrong, and everything's bigoted and horrible and sexist, and he's got to fix it all. He's just got to hack it all away and solve all of it. And if you think that about source material, then there's no possible way that you can like it, because you couldn't like anything that tyrannical, you couldn't like anything that oppressive, you couldn't like anything that bigoted. And so all of his claims that he does are just proven in what he's produced. There's no way that this is going to stop. Every time I just see his face, I keep laughing. There's no way that you can write something as awful as this and change as much of it as this and actually like the original books. You can't. But I just don't understand how you could even like both stories. You can do some kind of mental gymnastics in your head that, oh, this is another turning in the wheel. This is an entirely different plot. But it isn't. And it's not what people wanted, and it's not what they were sold, and it's not what people expected. People wanted the books. They wanted the books recreated on the screen. And if you didn't, then you're not a fan of the Wheel of Time. If you wanted something different than the source material, then you didn't want the Wheel of Time made. You wanted another IP. And that's what this feels like. We've gone past any semblance of sanity. We've gone past any semblance where you can actually even kind of excuse them. And at least in the other episodes, there were parts that I liked, and I could be fair and be like, I like Shadar Logoth, or I like this scene, or I like the bit they did over here, or this wasn't accurate, but at least they took this out of the books. Nothing is from the books here. People have been replaced. We've literally got Rand and Matt quarantined in a hotel away from anybody, just in case they get out and actually do something for once. Because we have to segregate them off and keep them from being main characters, just so we can show all of the useless side characters doing everything instead. You couldn't be any mask off and obvious than they're currently being. And I genuinely can't see any positive or upside about this episode. I don't know what there is to be good about it. I don't know what there is to like. And after this, I'm going to go off and I'm going to watch other people's reviews, because I always leave them until after I've done my own. And I know the people I'm going to watch, and I know probably what they're already going to say. And it gets harder and harder to see their position on it every single episode. When the writers have deliberately come and destroyed characters, and destroyed plot arcs and obliterated somebody's personality in Perrin just so he couldn't do something good, just so he couldn't protect people, just so he couldn't be what he wanted to be, what his actual personality is. No, they had to give him something bad to turn his actual reasons and motives from positive to guilt. That is the amount of effort they will go to for these lengths. And it's not improving anything. It's not fixing anything. It's destroying, because that's all it seems like they can do now. They can only make anything worse. Every change that they've made that wasn't just something in the background, they've objectively made worse than what already happened. I don't mind them going off and explaining things that happened in the background or moving around events, as long as it makes sense. Fine. I actually have already complimented a lot of the stuff they've said in the past, which actually showed things that were only kind of mentioned in the books, but we never really had a good description of them. They were quite good, like the scene with Logain at the start of episode 4. I liked it. And that was never in the books either. But the moment they start touching things that were already written, they can't even get it right because they don't want to, and it's disgusting. And while, yes, when you make videos, it's easy to be a bit hyperbolic or use a bit over sort of enthusiastic wording, like you are completely talentless, just to describe something, just to kind of drive the point home and make things a bit more entertaining. But when it comes to this episode, it is entirely and utterly serious and entirely utterly accurate. It's not a joke in this shape, shape, or form. It's the only way you can actually describe what happened on the screen. Abysmal. And honestly, easily the worst episode so far. It makes 4 look amazing. And this is why I don't kind of give things scores. Because if you did, you kind of have to realize they could always go lower. And if I mark this as low as I think it deserves, my issue is I think they're going to get worse. And I don't like going into minus numbers. So instead, I'm just going to leave all of this as one long description about how atrocious Amazon have made this series. I didn't think it was possible to make the Wheel of Time this bad. And I actually still don't think it is. Because really, when I look at this isn't the Wheel of Time. But one thing I will say is there are other series that I really like, that I would have really liked to be turned into TV series, and I think they would make incredible TV series. And I could reel off book series after book series to literally... would be a license to any kind of quality TV production company to print money if they just got those IPs and did them justice. But I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to hope for it, and I'm going to say what they are for the simple fact that I know that this has happened to one thing, and this will happen to anything else that is made at this time by these people. And there is only one way that it could actually be solved, and I don't think that's very likely in the near future. So for now, that's it from me. I hate making these kind of videos. This isn't the kind of review I want to make. Not about Wheel of Time. Not about something I actually cared about. And I don't... I don't want this to happen. I don't want to see this, and I don't want to watch this. But I will, and I'll continue to review it because... But I will, because I think it needs to be done. But for now, that's it from me. If you liked the video, press like, and let me know what you thought of Wheel of Time's Episode 5 down below. Oh... I should make some good comments. Whether you liked it, whether you didn't, let me know down below. But for now, that's it from me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.